Good morning and welcome to our Wednesday show, Jour du Galop. It's Inside News. Thank you very much for joining us, and I've got Shahil with me once again. We're going to go through the previous meeting, our two to follow, the 3 barrier trials yesterday morning, and obviously a couple of horses that galloped that we thought was worthwhile talking about it. I have to say, Shahil, when I opened the card on Thursday night, when I got my race card, I thought pretty straightforward card. To me, it looked like a couple of bankers on the card, and I thought it was going to be pretty straightforward, but there were a couple of results. Obviously, a mum was one of them, and I mean, like I said, this couch would probably be empty if Perplexing got beat, and he did get beat, and I think sort of unfortunate circumstances. He was probably a little bit unlucky. I couldn't understand why Olivier Placet pulled off the fence when he did. I think if he, this is my opinion, I think if he stayed on that fence, he probably would have gone on and won the race.
Probably because of his racing pattern. You know how Perplexing always runs to the outside. It takes some time to get going. Probably that's why Olivier just didn't want to get boxed, actually. And unfortunately, this is what happened. Like you said, this is racing. It happens. I'm sure he'll lose next time out. I think
we'll see. I mean, that's not the end we've seen of Perplexing. He's a top racehorse, and I've always stressed that once this horse goes over a little bit more ground, the 1850, the 2-2, even the 2-4. I think we're going to see a lot more Perplexing. So unfortunately, one of my favorite horses got beat, and but I think we'll see we'll see Perplexing come back and back into the winner's closure. He's a top horse. Well, the pick 8 that paid 1.6 million. These are 750,000 carryover. Shahil, I think you were with me when I worked out my pick 8, and unfortunately, I never put in Haman. But I think that's my new bet. I'm going to take a pick 8, sort of 5-10%, and 1.6 million, 10% of that. I mean, who's going to give you 160,000 rupees? So that's going to be my new bet, and I'm going to sort of concentrate on that in the coming weeks. Right, there's 2 horses I wanted to talk about on the particular day. Was obviously Cool at Heart. How impressive was he? He was unbelievably impressive when he won from start to finish.
Yeah, that's right. It was very impressive, like you said. The way he quickens about the 400 when he just switches on and he takes the first run on his opponent, that is very impressive, the way he does it.
Yeah, I mean, he beat them by over 3 lengths. And you just had to go back to, from the time that he's been fitted with the blinkers. I think he's had the 4 wins and 5 places now with the blinkers. And it's done the trick with him, and he really looks like he's going to be, well, he's just getting better and better. I noticed now in his 3 runs, he's gone up 17 points in the rating. They got 7 points for that win on Saturday. So at the beginning of the season, he was a 52. He's now a 69. So obviously not going to get easier for him. And but he really has turned the corner. And once again, I think we've mentioned a few times, Richard Mullen telling me one day what a top horse he thought he was. And the pennies dropped with Cool at Heart. Terrific win, and well done to Derek David and Vincent Allett. Their sort of form continues, and long may it last. And you wanted to say something?
Yeah, actually, Cool at Heart, I think he can go up in distance too, because he's won on 1850 last year. So that will be very interesting if he runs the last 2 legs of the 4-year-old championship. Obviously, I think the Derby will be on 1850 and the Guineas on 1600. So let's see how it copes against the likes of White River, etc.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if they do go that route with Cool at Heart. Right, and then another horse I wanted to talk about was Mr. Hardy. I did some. I mean, this is the beauty about racing. You know, everyone's got their own opinions. I wasn't a big fan of Mr. Hardy's, especially with that Port Elizabeth form. I thought I was right when he sort of fluffed his second run. But wow, there was also another very impressive performance, and I don't think Mr. Hardy's going to stop winning his races here.
Yeah, it was a very impressive performance when he turned in for home. He had already 3 lengths under the hand, and that was really impressive. Like I said, I did want to give him one more chance. He probably needed that first run. Even in track work, the Gilbert Rested horses does take some time to get going this season. They're not 100% at the first start. So yeah, Mr. Hardy is just one example of that.
Yeah, anyway, it was nice to see 4 Mr. Hardys on the track. Obviously, Mr. Hardy, the horse, and the 3 Mr. Hardy owners, who've quite good friends of mine. Well done to them. Looks like they got a nice horse, and let's hope Mr. Hardy keeps on winning for the Hardys. Right, let's talk about our 2 to follow. The horse that I want to talk about is from the Rajramdin stable after the order. And I remember on Friday morning, Raksha mentioned this horse to us on the show, and I was sort of pretty, well, I never even gave it a look. And I have to say, I went back and watched his barrier trial. His barrier trial was quite impressive, and he was drawn 10 on Saturday. He jumped out, and I have to say, Dennis Stoffel, I thought he placed him pretty well in the race from that 10 draw. Obviously, a little bit of luck, things sort of worked out for him, and he was just following Mr. Hardy on his heels, travelling beautifully, and when Mr. Hardy sort of quickened up, unfortunately after the order sort of like just lost that little bit of spark there. He lost a couple of lengths, but he came into the straight, and he really, when he balanced up, he really finished the race off well. Obviously he was never going to beat Mr. Hardy, and but I think after the order, looking at this run, he is definitely finishing far better than the rest of the field. And obviously with that little bit of experience, the run under the belt, he's probably going to get a little bit better. Yes, I have to admit it wasn't the strongest of fields, but it's not every day that these 0.26s are sort of strong, so, or 31s, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you sort of do bump a weak field every now and then, and I think this horse is worthwhile following. Like I said, I like the way he finished the race. He looked like he's got a nice action, and could be another horse from South Africa that didn't really perform that well. I think he was a maiden back in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, and he also looks like a horse that sort of enjoys the island life.
Yeah, that's right. Like you said, he will get a race where there will be not such a strong field once again. And like you said, I think it was 31 or 26. He should be able to grab a win pretty soon in this class.
Well, I hope so for Raj's sake, because he's had a nice start to this season. Let's hope he does pick up a couple more winners. And after the order, looks like he could bring another winner for Raj Ramdin. Right, Shael, the horse you want to do, well, the horse that you spotted was Zen Zero, if it was the last race?
Yeah, that was the last race on the 990 against the hot favorite, What a Fizz. I spotted this horse in track work 2 weeks ago. I did mention him on Jour du Galop. Unfortunately, he was drawn 10 this time. Like I said, the 990, it's not always ideal when you're drawn 10. Manoel Nunes tried his best. He couldn't get to the lead because What a Fizz was on his inside being drawn 1. He had a pretty tough race, being carried wide throughout the race, but despite all these unfavorable circumstances, he ran a great race. He finished second to What a Fizz, who won going away. I'm sure next time out in the 0.25 or 0.26, if he can find a 990 or even a 13.65 or 1400 meters, I think Zen Zero should be able to win a race pretty soon. And like I said, with Manoel Nunes now in the stable of Sham Hurchan, that's a big asset for them.
Yeah, we have said to follow Hurchan's stable, and hopefully next time he doesn't drop his whip. I don't know if you noticed that he dropped his whip. Yeah, 200 to go, Manoel Nunes dropped his whip, and I suppose that, listen, at the end of the day, he was never going to beat What a Fizz, but that was a good run, and I do agree with you. I think maybe the 13.65 probably in his favour, but there was a nice run from Zen Zero. Right, that's our 2 to follow. That's the past. Let's move on to the future. We have 3 barrier trials. We're going to talk about all 3 of them. The first barrier trial was Perovskia from the Ricky Mangard stable. Secret Idea from Pritam Dabi. He had the yellow colours. He had blinkers. And In a Million from the Shirish Narang stable. Blue Jacket also had blinkers. In fact, Perovskia, you'll see him in the gallop. He's got that sort of flashing red light on his skull cap. I know Ricky uses that. It helps him with timing, and you'll see, because it was galloped in pretty dark conditions. But Perovskia, well, he's a top horse, and obviously he got to fly out the gates with the blinkers, and well, he never tried blinkers back in South Africa. Maybe it's a sort of trick just to get some grass gallops, but unless he, well, it remains to be seen whether or not he's going to race with blinkers. But I thought he galloped pretty well, and I thought a couple of people mentioned they were disappointed with his run in the Duchess. I honestly thought he was going to need that run. To me, he wasn't 100% fit, and he ran like he needed it. He looks a lot fitter now. This gallop sort of proved it, and that was quite an impressive gallop. Daryl Holland just sort of in the hands, gave him 1 or 2 smacks on the shoulder, or sort of taps on the shoulder, just to keep him interested. But I would imagine Perovskia, probably his biggest, his goal is probably the Barbie Cup later on in, I think it's the end of June, if I'm not mistaken. All right, that was Perovskia. Secret Idea, well, he was pretty consistent horse. He is a 4-time winner. He had quite a lot of places. Pritam Dabi trying the blinkers. I've noticed that's a little bit of a trend with Pritam, trying a couple horses with blinkers. We just have to think of that Prince of Thieves that won with blinkers. And he put up a nice gallop as well. Then In a Million from the Shirish Narang stable. New horse. He's a 4-time winner, 5-year-old from South Africa. Won most of his races, well, in fact, he won all his races over ground, and this is why it doesn't sort of surprise me that he never had the pace in this barrier trial. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him gallop again. but we'll probably see the best of this horse in a million once we start racing over further, sort of the 1850s, the 2100, 2200. But he's an out-and-out stayer, and I'm not surprised he finished sort of behind these two horses, because obviously the 1000 meter is a little bit too far for him. Right, well, that's the first barrier trial. Perovskaya looks like his campaign for one of the classics is on target. And let's hope. Well, let's wish him all the best, because Perovskaya is owned. Well, he was previously owned by a very good friend of mine in South Africa, and I'm sure he'd love to have Perovskaya do well here in Mauritius. Right, the second barrier, Shahil, take us through that. You went through that barrier trial?
Yeah, with 3 horses, only one newcomer in there. Flying Arrow from the Gilbert Rousset stable with a yellow jacket, Rocketeer from the Ricky Mangala with the green jacket, and Midnight Oracle from the Précédente début with the red jacket. So Flying Arrow, oh boy, was he impressive. He was very quick at the starts, and he won the trial very, very easily. He was tried with the blinkers. The thing is, with this horse, he's got nothing on his South African form that stands out. He's still a maiden back in South Africa. He has run from 1000 meters up to 1400. He's by Captain Al. Nothing really stands out, but the way that he won this trial was really, really very impressive. The pace that he's shown and everything. Whenever he runs this horse, he'll take some catching. Rocketeer, he hasn't shown much in 2 starts here, finishing far off the winner. He didn't show much in the barrier trial even yesterday. He's a 2-time winner in South Africa over 1600 meters. He has run up to 2.4 back in SA. He could probably be asking for much more distance, and I'm not sure if Ricky Mangala can find those staying distances in his class. And obviously, Midnight Oracle, he won 2 races last season. He has gone up in class since, as he's won 2 races in 0.25 and a benchmark of 31. He's now rated 33. He probably needs to drop 2 points to be competitive back again in a 31. He's already had 2 runs this season to Amritsar when he was 4th on the 1 length. That was a promising run. So next time out, probably if he runs with the blinkers, he could probably run an improving race.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah, I do agree with you. Flying Arrow was he was very, very quick. He opened up a gap of 10, 12 lengths in that barrier trial. I've seen South Africa he raced similarly. Big sort of leads, but obviously he's probably limited on distance. And but 990, that'll probably suit him down to the ground in 990. And especially the way that he did that barrier trial. I agree with Shahil. Probably first time out, worthwhile following a horse like Flying Arrow from the Gilbert Rousset stable. Right, I'll do the third one, Shahil. It was, in fact, all 3 horses were being repassed. It was Man from Seattle, Rameshwar Gajra, Tarandius, Shirish Narang, he had the red with the blinkers, and Consul of War from the Pritam Devi, the blue jacket, and all these horses were being repassed. Man from Seattle, you got to say this horse has been disappointing. I think a lot of people have followed this horse. He looked like he was going to be quite promising. Only managed to win the 1 race, but obviously the fact that he's not jumping has put a toll to his shots. And once again, he must have got left by about 4 or 5 lengths yesterday morning. But he did gallop well. He turned into the straight. He made up the ground and he galloped well. But you know, on race day you can't afford to give away 4 or 5 lengths, and it's obviously still is a big concern as far as Man from Seattle is. I reckon if they do get him right, it doesn't look like it's going to be easy, but he's a sort of horse that is better than the division that he's running in. If they do get Man from Seattle right, I reckon he could win a race or 2, but that's a big if. Tarandius from the Shirish Narang stable. This is the second time we've seen him barrier, this time with the blinkers, and he finished his South African career off with some blinkers on, and it's probably his best form. He did win a mile or 1600. I think he will probably go a little bit further. Remember, he beat Xanthus, and he's only rated 29, so Tarandius is a horse worth following. And then Consul of War, probably my pick of this gallop with a Pritam Devi stable. Unfortunately, I couldn't find his first barrier trial, so I couldn't really compare it. And he is a maiden from Cape Town, but he has been placed 3 out of his 5 starts. He's got some nice form, some nice horses he's run behind, and I like this horse's action. I like the way he was striding out, and he is rated 31 because he was bought as a 4-year-old, which is a pity. If he was bought as a 3-year-old, he would have arrived here at 26. But he hasn't had a lot of racing, so he's only had the 5 runs inside, so he's quite lightly raced, and he was hard held in the gallop. And I do believe that Consul of War probably a little bit better than rating 31, but obviously it would have been nice for the stables, if the stable connections, if he arrived off at 26. But going back to that gallop, I think both those newcomers are going to be sort of pretty decent horses for their stable come the rest of the season. Right, that was the barrier trial. Then we had, as usual, 10 horses that we've spotted on the sand track. I've spotted 5. Shahil spotted 5. We're going to go through those quickly. Number 1, well, the first one is White River from the Rameshwar Gajara stable, and most likely going to be the first choice or sort of odds-on favourite for the first leg of the 4-year-old championship on Saturday. Manoel Nunes worked him. He jumped on him. I suppose Manoel Nunes, well, he's got a 100% record with Rameshwar Gajara. With he won that, I think it was the Gold Cup last year, and then he won with Nabula. So he's probably going to jump at this chance, make it 3 out of 3. But White River, very impressive winner of the Duchess. Remember, Nabula ran second. He came out and won a very, very good race, and like I said, probably has to be everyone's favourite to win on Saturday, the first leg of the 4-year-old championship. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good work. I liked the way that White River, I'm sure Manoel Nunes liked the way he worked, and I would imagine he's going to go with White River because he did work Uzo as well. So I would imagine he's going to lean, or probably not lean, he's probably going to jump onto White River. I know many, I suppose every other jockey in the world would choose White River instead of Uzo. I'm not knocking Uzo, I just think White River is obviously a much better ride. All right, Shahid, you saw Avec. He's had 2 terrible draws this year. How's he working?
He's working pretty well, actually. Like you said, those mega horses are starting to pick up form now. He went pretty close last time out when he was second to Mind Blowing. Unfortunately, I don't know for which reason he hanged out so much that day.
Yeah, it was more of a duck out. He sort of came in the straight, and I spoke to Daryl afterwards, and it was so sort of unexpected, should I say?
Because he never did that in the past.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's hope, let's cross fingers that he doesn't do that again this time. Obviously, he's still a promising sort because he's a very young horse. I think he won 2 races last year, and the win on International, it was pretty impressive because he was pretty keen that day, and Jamia did his best to kind of settle him, but he still won going away that day, and that was really impressive. I'm sure he'll have a lot more in his stomach for this season, so let's see how Afdik goes. He should be very competitive back in the benchmark of 36 that he's entered this week.
Yeah, let's hope Afdik pulls a draw because, like I said, he's had 2 runs this year, both times been drawn in the bush, and he's sort of a horse that is a much easier horse to ride with a better draw. He's not one of those horses that you've got to sort of drop in behind. He likes to be handy and he likes to be covered up as well. So let's hope Afti gets a draw. If he does get a draw, I agree with you, Shahil. I think it'd be quite a tough nut to crack on Saturday. Right, King's Empire from the Herchan stable, and we have said start following the Herchan stable. Manoel Nunes is there, and the horses just seem to be running better and better. They've managed to win a race in the last 2 meetings. And yeah, King's Empire is one of those horses that I've noticed has improved dramatically from last year. He had the 3 runs and sort of just got better and better with every run. For me, he's matured. He's working nicely. I like the way he worked yesterday. He is entered this week in a 1450 benchmark 36. And if he doesn't need the run, he'll probably be a big runner there as well. He'll probably go very close. I like the way he worked under Manoel Nunes. King's Empire, like I said, some nice runs last year. I don't think he was sort of at his peak. He's matured over the off-season. I'm expecting a good run from King's Empire on Saturday. Right, Shahil, your next horse was Badawi.
Badawi, right? He won first up this season, but then followed up with a disappointing run on his second outing. But he has excuses that day when he was finishing 8th to Cape Horn. He had a tough race caught wide that day. He couldn't lead. He couldn't find an easy lead, and probably that cost him the race. He's been working well, and he seems to have improved a lot from his first season last year. He doesn't necessarily have to run over 990 because he's won on 1400 last year. So let's see how he goes next time out. But he's been working pretty well for the past couple of weeks now.
Yeah, he's done pretty well. I mean, he has been a much better horse this season, and I do agree. I think he's a better horse than his last run. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for him. It was a tough race, just like Mr. Hardy. I think we'll give Badawi another chance. I'm a big fan of Badawi. I've always have been. Let's hope he bounces back and he's back into the winner's box. Right, then in the first race, entered in the first race is Napoli from the Narang Yard, and there was a great second to grade 5-8 last time when finishing strongly. He is entered in the 0.25 again over 1500 in that first race. I think he's going to be a big contender. Remember, he arrived in Mauritius off a 36. Slowly sort of dropped down to this rating of 25, where obviously he's a lot more competitive. That was a good second, and I think he could be he could be one of the horses to beat in the first race on Saturday. He worked with the blinkers. In fact, he has been running his last couple of runs have been with blinkers, and he's improved with the blinkers in his last 3 outings, and he did work with the blinkers, and I thought that was quite nice work. And another stable that's doing quite well now, Shirish Narang and Bruno Rees, they are doing quite well, worthwhile following them. I think Napoli, I don't know if, I'm not sure if, I don't think it'll be a Mauritian race because they had the Mauritian race last week. So I would imagine that Bruno Rees will be on Napoli this week and probably worthwhile following.
Yeah, that's right. Like you said, he was finishing up very strongly last time out. So let's see how he goes. I hope he's got a 1600 or 1650 this week.
Your next horse you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, that was a promising comeback run. He was run 4th to the promising Boya last time out. He was tried over 1400 for the first time. I'm sure you had your doubts about him. I tried to convince you and you made up your mind. He did make up some ground late on in the day to finish 4th against Boya. He has come on from that run under Carl Zachner. He's been working pretty well now. Next time out, if he runs back over his minimum trip over 990 or even on a 1400, I reckon this horse should be visiting the winner's enclosure very soon.
Yeah, I think he is entered in a 1450 this week, if I'm not mistaken. I personally prefer him over the sprint, over the 990. I see he is in a 1450, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there was nice work with next door to Blow in the Box, who I thought was pretty unlucky last time. And both of them, Dollar Tractor and Blow in the Box, putting up some nice work there. Right, we're gonna stick with Pretam Derby Stable, and finally we get to see Till Dawn entered. I've been waiting all, what's it been, 8 weeks or 7 weeks for this horse to run, and he's looking magnificent. He's working well. In fact, he's been working for a long time. I'm sort of very impressed that Pretam has managed to keep him sort of at his peakness level. And when he runs over the 1500 on Saturday, well, he's entered in a 1500 on Saturday. In my opinion, that's going to suit him down to the ground. Remember, great second to Mind Blowing. Mind Blowing came out and won. He beat Afdik, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty good form. And Till Dawn, I reckon he's going to be a lot lighter when it comes to the scales. He looks a lot lighter. He was 22 kilograms heavier his last run. I think he's going to be a lot lighter this time, a lot fitter. He's got some good form, this horse. Carl Zechner seemed very happy with his work when he walked off the track. He had a bit of a grin on his face, if there was a little bit of a giveaway. But Till Dawn, I've been following this horse for a while. I think he's going to be quite a tough nut to beat on that's if he runs. I mean, we're just going on the nominations, but if he is entered and he races, I think Till Dawn's going to take quite a lot of beating. Right, then you wanted to speak about Ali Shiba.
Yeah, that's right. He came here with a huge reputation last year. I think he was already owned by Ricky Mangal back in South Africa, and he ran into some top quality races there. He made an encouraging debut on internationally with Manoel Nunes on board, and then he had a promising comeback run last time when he finished 2 lengths off Wolfdag, and he looked to be in need of that run. That run has obviously bring him forward to his next outing. I'm not sure. Is he entered the 4-year-old championship? I'm not sure, but I think he'll run the next time out. He will now strip fitter and could be looking for the mile as he's won over 1600 back in South Africa. He will probably be very competitive in those 4-year-old championship races at his weight.
Yeah, I do agree with Shahil there once again. He's had two runs now in Mauritius, 2 sort of decent efforts, has been beaten far, but to me he looks sort of like he's ready to strike now. He looks like he's ready to probably put in a very good performance, Ali Shiba. All right, my last horse and our penultimate horse of the morning was the Great One from the Gajara stable. Obviously, he will probably be aimed at some of the bigger races later on in the season, and they're sort of just taking their time with the Great One. You can't forget those 2 brilliant runs in Group 1 company when he was under sufferance at Weight for Age, when he ran second to both his stable companions, Stable Bay and Enoch. Those were 2 cracking races. In fact, at 1 second I thought he actually had the maiden in the bag, probably sort of 50 to go, and he got grabbed sort of late there by the top horse Enod. But he's a top horse, and like I said, probably not at his sort of peakness yet, at his full fitness yet, but like he's probably is going to be aimed for a couple of nice races later on in the season, and slowly they're taking their time with him, but he really looks like he's in good nick. He's striding out beautifully, this horse, and he definitely deserves to win a couple of races this season, or even one of the big ones. I think he's good enough, and there was excellent work alongside Malak Al Maluk. Coming on nicely is the Great One. We're going to keep, well, I'm going to keep an eye on him. I definitely think he's going to pick up 1 or 2 events this year. Right, then the last horse of the morning was same stable, Black Cat Back. Shahil, you had a look at him?
Yeah, we're sticking with the Gejada stable. Black Cat Back, he was one of the most fancied runners for the Duchess this week, this season actually. Unfortunately, he had a setback and he was on 100% fit. Obviously, the Gejada stable didn't want to risk him and they opted to rest him for some months now. He's back at track work. He's been looking good in the morning. Obviously, has some very good South African form. He's a 5-year-old son of Black Mane Aloysius, a 5-time winner back in South Africa. And what impresses me the most is that he's a specialist of the 1400 meters because all his 5 wins have come over the 1400 meters. He's a horse which likes to lead. He has a lot of pace, so let's see how he goes next time out. He's worked with that horse Al Zakira. I did mention him 2 or 3 weeks ago. He's another horse that I'm really looking forward to make his debut.
Okay, great. Okay, well there we go. That's our Wednesday show. That's our barrier trials, our training, and obviously our 2 to follow as well. Remember, on Friday morning we will be doing our show On the Mark, where we will be going through the card for Saturday. Hopefully we can help you out. Hopefully our banker arrives this week. That was quite embarrassing. All 3 of us chose Perplexing, although we did What a Fizz a banker as well, but Perplexing got beat. I think he had a tough race, once again unlucky, but hopefully on Friday we can find you a nice value bet and a nice banker for the weekend's racing. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you on Friday. Goodbye.